ready for some football. I don't know about you. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me? You're me, Louie T. Welcome to Monday Night Football Overtime. We had a doubleheader, 2-for-1 special. Titans Dolphins kicked us off, and we finished up the night with Seattle at Detroit. Two really good teams thus far. And the irony of both games, each team leaves the game with the same record in both games, right? For the first game, both teams leave the game at 1-3. For the second game, both teams leave with the inverse at 3-1. Two totally different games, one with fireworks, tons of points, bunch of yards, big plays, etc. The other, not so much. And so I won't spend a ton of time on Miami and Tennessee, but we'll dedicate a couple minutes there at the beginning of this show. I also want to touch up on Buffalo and Baltimore from yesterday. We did not get to do that last night because my Washington stream ran a lot longer. Not that than I expected. I knew it was going to be a very long stream because of the nature of the game that we had just participated in. So we never got to the Baltimore and Buffalo stream last night, but I do want to talk about that game. So we will do that tonight as well. Do want to give a quick shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this stream. And we'll get to Inside the Odds a little bit later on in the show. But with that said, let's start the night off talking about the first game of the two tonight, which was Titans at Dolphins. I didn't know. So, I don't know if this would have impacted. Maybe it would have impacted my thought process. I don't think it would have changed what I ultimately did. But I did not know Tyler Huntley was going to get the start tonight. Emotional game for him. Grew up a Dolphins fan. Grew up in Florida, and his dream was to play for the Miami Dolphins. What better stage to make your first career start as a Dolphin on Monday Night Football for everyone to see. I got I'm wrong for this, but I don't feel bad for feeling this way. Before the game, I think it was Laura Rutledge. I don't remember. I think it was Laura Rutledge who was on the sideline for the first game with the first broadcasting crew, Louis Riddick and Dan Orlovsky and Chris Fowler. And she was talking to Tyreek Hill before the game started. And she asked Tyreek Hill, what is it going to take for them to get a win? And, he talked about him needing to be more of a leader, and Tua's not there and playing. So other guys are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to do it collectively, yada, yada, yada. And then she asked about the quarterback position. And he's like, yeah, I'm not worried about the quarterback position. All you got to do is distribute the ball to the playmakers. We got a Pro Bowl quarterback back there. And I thought this man talked about Tyler Huntley's phantom-ass Pro Bowl appearance like 2-3 years ago and actually referenced that in an interview. I said, oh, the football guy, you got to pay for that. The football guys aren't going to just sit back and let that shit ride. This man said that with confidence, and he didn't flinch. Oh, we got a Pro Bowl quarterback back there. Hey, that was hilarious. So on that note, Tyler Huntley proceeded to go out and embarrass himself. Now, man only been there for 2 weeks, so I'm not going to hold him to a high standard. I kind of figured that this game would go the way that it did, but I was on the Titans side of this thing. Right, I'm pulling for the Titans. I picked the Titans to win this game because, unlike most, I've watched every Tennessee Titans game this season, and defensively, they're not bad. Like, they play quality defense, and if not for Will Levis turning it over and the special teams giving up a block punt in week 1 against Chicago, they win that game. If not for Will Levis having a foolish fumble against the Jets in week 2, they might. I'm not guaranteeing you. It wasn't like the Bears game where they were dominating that game. They might win that game. They only lost that game by a touchdown, and they were up but I think it was 7-0 at the time when Levis had the boneheaded fumble against the Jets, and they were in the red zone at that. So at worst, 10-0, maybe 14-0 was what that score ultimately could have been. And who knows what happens there, because as we just saw, the Jets aren't all that good, right? Offensively, they stink right now. And yeah, it was a wet day. It doesn't matter. They're not good on offense. And I talked about that earlier in the season, but that's another topic for another day. They could have beaten the Jets potentially at home. Last week against Green Bay, they were overmatched. They were in over their heads. The Packers had an agenda. They were going to win that game from Malik Willis, and there was nothing the Titans could do about it. But their defense up until last week had played really well. And I didn't know that there was going to be no big Jeff Simmons in this game. But I said, watching the Titans earlier this season, I think I said this on the podcast when we were going slate skating, I said, you know what? They've done a really good job of putting together a formidable defense via free agency. You know, former first-round pick linebacker from the Chargers. The Oklahoma linebacker, Kenneth Murray Jr., right? He's running around there. They signed, I think they traded for Jones from the Rams right before the season started, which was a good pickup. They got the 2 Seattle safeties, but one in particular, Quandre Diggs, who I love. But they also, I think, signed the other one too, but that he's relevant. Quandre Diggs is the one, and he made plays tonight. Quandre Diggs was fantastic. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed, right? So they've revamped this defense. They signed Sebastian Joseph Day in free agency, and I'm like, man, this defense isn't half bad. I mean, there's a lot of good quality football players on this defense, and so I expected them to be able to hold down a less than satisfactory Miami Dolphins offense with a quarterback that had only been there 2 weeks. The biggest thing is you just can't give up the big plays, right? Don't let Tyreek Hill get loose. Don't let Jalen Waddle get loose. And don't let any of the running backs, the speedy backs, get loose. Make them work for everything, because they're not going to be able to consistently drive the football down the field. And that is exactly what the Titans did. They had a big 4th down stop. Great job by Kenneth Murray stringing it out. And then Quandre Diggs with a fantastic tackle. As I mentioned, he also had an interception on a 2-point conversion that pretty much salted the game away. Diggs was everywhere. You know who else was super impressive? The rookie T'Vondre Sweat. My God, he is so good. He was everywhere tonight. They could not block him. He's so nimble at 340 plus pounds, moving up and down the defensive line. He was super impressive tonight. And you know what's crazy is I'm watching this game at the beginning, and Will Levis throws an interception, and it's a bad interception. Like, comes to the sidelines, and you can read his lips. I didn't see him. And I'm like, how could you not see him? You're staring at the receiver. He's standing right in front of DeAndre. Like, it's one thing if a guy comes out of the side, your line of sight, like he's outside of the vision of your helmet, and he's just out of your line of sight. And as you let it go, he comes into your line of sight and he picks it off. Or I could see if you were trying to layer a throw over a defender and you didn't see him, like Jared Goff or Geno Smith, rather, almost threw an interception to Alex Anzalone tonight in the end zone. And he didn't see him because he was trying to layer the throw over him. And while he wasn't really layering it over him, he was looking in the back of the end zone. He didn't see the defender underneath. And he was kind of off-centered from where Geno was throwing the football, so you could understand how he just didn't see him. Literally, DeAndre Hopkins run a stop route, and right in front of him is Emmanuel Ogbah. Like, there's no way you can't see this man. And he throws it right to him. And it's a crazy pick because he drops it, but he goes through his legs and he squeezes it with his thighs, and it doesn't touch the ground, so it's an interception. And I'm like, this guy's going to cost me the game tonight. And I said, I asked the football, I said, can y'all do anything about this, man? Like, I don't think they're going to bench him, but please, they got to sit him down. He's going to cost them this game. And I talked about this on the podcast. This is their best opportunity to get off the snap. If you can't beat the Dolphins in their current state, when are you going to win a game? And the next possession, first of all, Tyler Huntley throws the ball backwards. Tyreek Hill, first of all, he was tripping because he didn't catch it. That's 1 and 2. You got to make sure that that's not a lateral. He needed to be hauling ass after that football. Worst case scenario, bat that bitch, kick it out of bounds, whatever you got to do, take the penalty, but don't let it be recovered by the Titans. So he gives it right back to Tennessee because I didn't want the Dolphins to score first in this game because that was going to be a bad omen. So they get it back, and Will Levis scrambles on a 3rd down, and he dives for the first down marker, and he comes up short, but he lands on his shoulder. And I thought he looked a little ginger coming off the field, but then you see him on the sidelines telling him, I hurt my shoulder. And I'm like, I didn't ask for an injury, football guys. I swear to you, I didn't ask for this. But I said, who's their backup first? Let me find out who we dealing with here, because if you're going to put in a clown, then I just rather you just have Will Levis continue to play. And it's like, well, Mason Rudolph, when I said, oh, Mason Rudolph, no, put Mason Rudolph in the game. Put Mason Rudolph in the game. hey, Mason, get in there. And once Mason came in, had a nice little solid drive, took him down the field, got a field goal. I said, hey, do not, under any circumstances, take Mason Rudolph out of this game. After this game, you can go back to Will Levis. You can do whatever the hell you want, because it ain't going to be too many more times I'm picking Tennessee this season. So you can do whatever you want with Will Levis after this game. They got a bye week, cool, right? Got to find out if Will Levis can do it or not. I think my mind is kind of made up on Will Levis, but we'll see what ultimately happens with him. But for tonight, we got to stick with Mason Rudolph. And I love how Callahan finessed it, because he was like, obviously Will Levis wanted to go back. And if Will was nice, he would have gone back in the game, right? Had his helmet on. He was standing there. His shit was still a little sore, but if he was nice, they would have put him back in the game. But he was like, yeah, no, let's just wait another possession and see if it feels better. He was milking the hell out of this shit. And then he realized, I can't put Will back in this game because he's going to do something stupid. And this is the exact type game that you can't afford to do anything dumb, because if you do, you're going to lose this game 10-9 because Will Levis threw a pick six, or Will Levis tried to throw a football as he's getting sacked and it gets picked off, or he fumbles, or he does some kind of ridiculous, idiotic thing with the football. He's already thrown a boneheaded pick. You can't put him back in the game. And I think he reconciled that in his brain at halftime, and he said, know what, Will? Stay ready. If anything happens, you'll go back in, but we're just going to roll with him tonight. We don't need to push it. We got the bye week. We don't want you to, hurt yourself any further. Let's just go into the bye week, let you heal up, and we'll get after it after the bye. And that was a smart move by Callahan. I said, thank you, football gods. He's not hurt. He's not seriously injured. He could come back in this game if he needed to, which means I don't feel bad for asking you to do something, because I needed something to be done. And then in the second half, they could have put Will Levis in, because all they did was run the damn football. They would have felt more compelled to probably throw it had Levis been in the game. With Rudolph, they were just like, hey, look, if we having any kind of success running, which they did, we just going to keep running the bitch. I think they threw it a total of 5 times in the second half. Yikes. Look, I wasn't complaining. I mean, watching the Dolphins offense the entire night, I was like, unless Tyreek Hill gets loose, and he almost did twice up each sideline, and the second time he was open. Like the first one, he was open up the sideline, but it was going to take a really good throw. The second one, I don't know, it's the 3rd and like 17, and somehow L'Jarius Sneed thinks playing off coverage, giving this man a head start, you're just going to keep up with him. If you're not out of your damn backpedaling, turning and sprinting by the time this man is 7 yards away from you, you finna get cooked. And he turned around and started to run when Tyreek was about 3 yards away from him. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Ran past him and the safety, and it almost got ugly. And I would have been pissed off if that thing would have connected, because they would have won the game then. Because at that time, I think the score was 16-9. No, it was never 16-9. I think it was 16-9. Was it? I don't think it was ever 16. That was 16-6. That's the score I think it was at that time, 16-6. They'd have won the game. If he connected on that deep ball, they'd have had all the momentum. They'd have came back and won this game because then you would have felt compelled to throw it. Who knows what the hell would have happened? But luckily, that shit didn't connect. Then we learned something on the onside kick, right? So they kicked the onside kick, and there's apparently a landing zone for the onside kick. Didn't know that because I was screaming at the clown who backed away like he's telling everybody, get away, get away. And I'm like, no, you idiot, fair catch it. I've seen someone do this already. Now, I had no idea, and I don't think that guy had any idea that there was a landing zone. If he did, more power to him, and his coach owes him an apology because his coach went ballistic, which I get because in my mind, I'm screaming, you stupid idiot. Go fair catch this thing and end this game. And he lets it fall. The Dolphins recover it. But apparently there's a landing zone, and you got to kick it inside. I think you can't go past the 40. It landed at the 42. So not only were the Titans awarded the football, they were, and this was after a safety, mind you. So Huntley got tackled in the end zone, tried to throw it away. There was nobody in sight other than a Titans defender. I actually thought that was a pick, to be honest with you. But got a call for intentional ground in the end zone, safety. And so they kicked the onside kick off of a free kick, off the safety. I've never seen that before anyway. That's news to me. And they punted it in the air, but it went a little bit further than it was supposed to go. So I learned something new about the kickoff rules. Clearly, the officials were confused. They were flummoxed because they didn't know what the hell happened. And then they had to huddle up, and New York had to call them in the ear and tell them exactly what to say. He didn't even announce anything. He just, he didn't say whose ball it was. You could tell he just was like, can we get this shit over with, please? Yeah, it was a lot of confusion there. But ultimately, the Titans defensively did enough to win this game. The Dolphins defense wasn't too shabby tonight, but they got no help from their offense. And they got worn down. You could tell towards the end of the game, the Titans started to get some gashes in the run game, and they started to wear down. And it was a byproduct of their offense just not being able to sustain itself. They were on the field. As a matter of fact, I'm interested to see what the time of possession was in the game, because I'd venture to say that the time of possession was pretty lopsided in the favor of the Tennessee Titans tonight. And the score doesn't do this game any justice. Titans won time of possession big time, 35-25. So and it felt like it watching the game, and you could see the Dolphins wearing down towards the end. The 31-12 final is not indicative of what this game was. This was a field goal fest for much of the night, with no explosive plays, no dynamic plays. You would have thought Tennessee got busy tonight. No, they did not. This was I think a 23. What was it? Before they scored that touchdown late, it was a 22-12 game, and that's what the final score should have been, because that's what this game deserved. 22-12. Some weird, funky ass 22-12 finish, and instead you get a safety, which made you feel like, if you didn't watch the game, 24 is an NFL number, right? That's a traditional number. You get 3 touchdowns and a field goal, right? So you're thinking, oh, okay, Tennessee was doing some work tonight. They scored a few touchdowns. Hell no, they ain't scoring no few touchdowns. They scored 2 touchdowns, like 3-4 field goals and a safety. But a win's a win in the National Football League. The Dolphins are lost right now without Tua, and it's sad to watch. They got all that talent on offense, no conductor, no one to pull the strings back there. And you know what I think most fans are oblivious to is just how important it is to have a trigger man. You're thinking, yeah, they got all this talent, just get them the football. It's not that, especially an offense like theirs, where it's very heavily predicated on motions and pre-snap shifts and all of this different stuff, these gadgety things that they do pre-snap. How many penalties did they have not having guys set because you got this quarterback who only has been there 2 weeks and he's not accustomed to all this shift and motions and all this movement. And so guys aren't getting set. He's not allowing them to get set. They're snapping the ball. 2 guys are moving, illegal shift. They had at least 3 or 4 of those tonight. So it was a mess. But the right team won. And so both teams are now 1-3 on the season. Titans head into their bye week. Dolphins, they continue to search for answers. And maybe Tyler Huntley plays a little bit better next week if he is, in fact, the starter. Again, we will see. Now, for the main event of the evening, Seahawks and Lions. Seahawks came into the game undefeated at 3-0, one of 2 NFC teams to remain unbeaten going into the weekend. Meanwhile, the Lions were coming off of a big win on the road at Arizona, in which the run game was the star of the show, 20-13. And so they had gotten to 2-1, looking to get to 3-1 on the season. And I had talked about this going into the game that for me, Detroit hadn't looked right on offense. You know, there were certain teams that you just come to expect them to look sharper on offense because that's the standard that they had set for themselves. And talked about that with Dallas. They don't look right on offense. Talked about the same thing with this Lions team. They don't look right on offense because this is a team that, like as they did tonight, scored 42. They routinely did that last year. You know, 38, 36, and 33. Like that's what, if you didn't have the ability to play competent, consistent defense, they were going to gobble you up on the offensive end and roll up a bunch of yards and points. And in this young season, Goff was turning it over. They weren't sustaining drives. They weren't hitting any explosive plays. And, you know, they had a bunch of them in the first game of the season against the Rams with J-Mo. But that's not even who they've been. They are more of a chunk play, not an explosive play team, right? It's Goff on the dig route for 20 to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's Goff on the deep comeback to Amon-Ra St. Brown for 18. It's the seam ball to Sam Laporta for 26. Like that's what their offense was based off of. And then you get hit in the run game by Montgomery or the Alabama running back. But they hadn't been doing that this year. You know, they hadn't been that consistent chunk play offense that eats up a bunch of yards. You know, 5 plays in, they're already at your 18-yard line going in. They hadn't been that team. And Jahmyr Gibbs is the other running back. But tonight they were that team. And a large part of that was due to the success, I think, of the run game last week, or the success of the run game early in this game. And then, you know, Goff was able to go play action fake off of that. And as you saw, he was 12 of 12 for like 240 yards in this game off play action fake. He was perfect on the night. 18 of 18 was Jared Goff for 292 yards. A large chunk of it coming on one play, the 70-yarder on the deep over route to J-Mo for the catch and run touchdown. But this looked like the Jared Goff that we had gotten accustomed to seeing last year, who was super efficient, didn't turn the ball over, throws the ball in between the numbers extremely well. Offense that is very hard to stop with a lot of those crossing routes, in-breaking routes, and Goff throwing within timing and rhythm of the offense. They run the football. They play complementary football. And that's what they had been doing last season, which is what led them to the 12-5 record, the division crown, and all the way to the NFC Championship game. We had not seen that level of efficiency from them offensively, but the defense had taken a step in the right direction, at least up until tonight. But tonight was them reverting back to who they were last year, where the defense isn't great. They can get stops here and there. They can create a turnover here or there, but getting stops consistently isn't necessarily who they are if they're playing a good quality offense that can move the football. And so they struggled in that aspect tonight. A lot of penalties. I was never a big fan of Terrion Arnold. A lot of people loved him, and I think part of the reason he fell in the draft is because people finally did their homework and they looked at him and said, he's not fast. He's not an elite cover corner. He's handsy. I thought he got beat a ton on tape. I wasn't a big Terry, and tonight it was funny because Troy Aikman, I love Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman said they got to get him mittens for practice. Essentially saying he grabs too much. They got to get him mittens, man. And I didn't realize this. This man is 8 penalties already. We're 4 games in. This man is 8 penalties on the season, and he had 3 tonight. He is a walking penalty machine, is what that means. So, Troy's like, they got to get this cleaned up. I don't know if they can, especially if you're going to continue to play man-to-man and be aggressive, which is what Aaron Glenn is doing a ton of. Like, even when the game was kind of, out of reach, but the only way they could get back in it is an explosive, he was still giving them one-on-one down the field, being aggressive. And I'm like, and Troy was like, bro, what are you doing? But Troy was like, look, this is who he is. He ain't changing. So it is what it is. But I thought it was a hell of a performance by the Lions offense. The 42 points speaks for itself. Geno Smith was spectacular in this game, gave the Seahawks a chance, especially in the second half. I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback start out their career being as mid as Geno Smith was, and then get to the back end of their career and be as good as Geno Smith has turned into. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Maybe Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon ended up being league MVP and leading the Raiders to the Super Bowl, and he wasn't that guy early in his career. But it's been a hell of a transformation for Geno Smith, and he set career highs in completions, attempts, and yards tonight. I thought he was going to go over 4 tonight, but he threw that interception at the very end. But this was a really good win for the Lions. They had struggled with Seattle. Seattle had won 6 straight against them. And I just remember how high scoring these games had been over the last 2 years in particular. I remember being at the bar last year and Seattle getting a pick late in, I want to say it was in overtime to set up the game-winning score. And that was a week 2 game last season. And I remember how good that game was. We were watching it at the bar. And then I remember the year before, it was just craziness in Detroit. It seemed like they always play in Detroit too. None of these games the last 3 years have taken place in Seattle. They've all been in Detroit for whatever reason. And I just remember that game being so high scoring. It's rare in the NFL to see a score 50-something to 40-something, but that's what that game was 2 years ago. And I think that's when I started to realize, hey man, this Geno Smith ain't bullshitting, is he? In Seattle. I think that's when I started to take notice. Like, nah, Geno on some real shit over here. But they had to exercise some demons, did the Lions. And they did that. And they knocked off one of the unbeatens. And, this game for me was a lot about, hey, let me see what Seattle is talking about. Like, it wasn't about winning this game. It was about how competitive could you be, because you hadn't played anybody to this point. Wanted to see if what you had done to this point from a confidence standpoint, because when you win, I don't care who you play. When you win, you start to build confidence. You start to believe, and that can bleed into now you playing a real team, and you're like, I don't give a shit. We can beat them, right? Or, where you're gonna get humbled. You come in here, crowds raucous, they jump on you early, and you wilt, right? It could have happened because Detroit was moving the football, scoring points. They looked like they were going to dominate these boys. And they went into halftime. I think it was 21-7. At halftime, they came out, they got the ball first, and they drove right down the field, and they scored a touchdown. And that settled them in this game. Even though Detroit went right back down the field and got a touchdown, it settled them down, and they were competitive from that point forward. So I thought it was a good showing by Seattle, even though they gave up a lot of points, right? 42 points is a lot of points. And a lot of big plays, man. How about Montgomery? He is one of my favorite running backs to come out of the draft over the last 6-7 years. Like one of my biggest videos to that point, and it came out of nowhere, was my draft 101 draft prospects 101 video on David Montgomery. And it's still up. And I think it got like 19,000 views. And that was the first time I did a video that was like kind of random like that got that many views. I was like, why the hell is this getting so many views? But I just remember loving him coming out of Iowa State. Like, golly, I'm a big contact balance guy. Like, love speed, and that's cool. And I love the guys that, have the ability to run. But can you survive a hit, keep your feet, and continue to get yards after contact is one of the biggest attributes you can have in the NFL as a running back. And both of the backs tonight had it on each side. You saw Kenneth Walker have 3 touchdowns tonight. He's a stud. And there was one play where he bounced off the pile, reverse field, and scored a touchdown, right? Like, these are the types of things that he does routinely. But that catch by Montgomery, and Witherspoon runs up on him, and Jerome Bettis ran him over without running. Like, literally, Witherspoon ran up like he was about to light him up. And I remember Jerome Bettis, I want to say he was playing against I forgot who it was. And he just ran a dude over like a car would run over roadkill, right? It was just crazy. He ran, and the dude literally smacked and fell under him, and he just kept running, right? It looked like literally like a bus running over somebody. And that's what it looked like when Witherspoon contacted Montgomery, right? He caught it, he turned around, and you're thinking, this is a kill shot. And Witherspoon took the worst of the brunt of the hit. He boom, and he fell back straight on the ground. And here's the crazy part. Montgomery didn't even move backwards. He didn't flinch. Nothing happened to him. And he turned around and he took off. Ran over another dude, stiff arm somebody else, stumbled through a tackle. That's that contact balance I'm talking about. Stumbled through a tackle, stayed on his feet, and picked up this massive gain. And you're like, yo, what the F, bro? He's just different, man. His only issue is he can't stay healthy. But David Montgomery, and one of the things I loved about him too, is he had tremendous agility, like phone booth agility for a bigger back, a physical back. You don't see that. A guy where he can stick his foot in the ground, make these ridiculous cuts and make guys miss in tight, confined spaces. Not the fastest guy in the world, but you don't have to be when you have some of those attributes that he possesses. And I think him and Jahmyr Gibbs are the perfect combination, because one guy is extremely physical and, can still make you miss. Like, I remember they had a nice little combination with Jamal Williams that first year. And they had another back, I feel like, complimenting him. But this is way better, right? Gibbs is ultimate home run threat and can do so many things. And then Montgomery is like the hammer, right? And he's just this physical back, gets yards after contact, sniffs the goal line, can get in the end zone. Gibbs got in the end zone a couple times tonight. Montgomery had a touchdown. It's a well put together roster in Detroit. The only thing I worry about, and it was the same concern I had about them last year, is their corners. Do they have enough at corner? They drafted 2 young fellas, and Ennis Rickstraw and the Alabama corner. And I'm not sure either one of them are truly ready to help them win right now. And they're in win now mode. So that's the thing I worry about. But you know who I do like? Carlton Davis is fine. I don't love Carlton Davis, but I am a massive, and I don't know why, I've been a massive fan of Amik Robertson. When he was drafted by the Raiders, I loved him coming out of La Tech, and I thought he played well tonight, man. I thought Amik Robertson was everywhere tonight. I'm a big Amik Robertson fan. And you know who else I'm a big fan of? Tim Patrick. And I thought he looked really good. And I remember when the Broncos cut him, they were trying to trade him first, and they cut him. And I wanted my Commanders to go and get him. And he looks good in Detroit, man. And I think if I'm Detroit, you got to make space for him on the roster. I don't know if he was up because of an injury somewhere else, or if they just, wanted to get him acclimated. They feel good about him now. He's going to be up from here on out. But he was really good tonight. And I think he adds something to their offense. And maybe that's what it was missing all along, another option opposite of the two in J-Mo and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But now there's a third. I kind of feel like he fills that Reynolds role, but even better. He's better to me than Reynolds was last year. And I think maybe that's what you were missing. And now you have that guy, right? So, we'll see. But I thought he looked good tonight too. So, all in all, I thought this was a strong performance. You don't want to give up 29 points if you're Detroit. Obviously, the safety at the end was stupid, but it happened. But all in all, I thought this was a good performance by Detroit, and it was what I was looking for from them. Like, where's the offense? What's going on? They put those questions to bed, and what a throw by Amon-Ra St. Brown to Jarek. That was just a delicious throw. My God. You couldn't have walked it up and handed it to him any better, partner. I mean, good grief. That was a great throw, man. Wow. And Jared Goff, he's got 2 left feet, but he didn't even have to do anything. That was just a great throw, man. Ben Johnson has been in his bag too. Got to give him credit. Last week, they did the hook and ladder, and normally you don't see that, until the end of the game in desperation. They did that shit right before the half, like with 2 minutes left, caught Arizona off guard and scored a touchdown. And I was like, yo, that was a dope ass play and a hell of a time to call it. And he did another one of those plays today. So, I got to give credit to Ben Johnson. He was in his bag tonight. I mean, obviously, Jared Goff goes 18 of 18, and that's not on accident. Ben Johnson really had it going, and they had a really good showing tonight. And I think they needed this, right? This was a good confidence builder for Detroit. Not that their confidence was waning or they had any issues, but they hadn't seen. It's like a shooter who's struggling or a hitter in baseball who's just not making good contact or not seeing the ball well. You just need one of those games where you get out of that funk, where you go 3 for 4 as a hitter and you feel confident. Okay, I fixed my swing. I got it now. Or as a shooter, you've been struggling, and then you have that game where you go 6 of 8 from deep, and you're like, all right, man, I think I got the stroke back. Like the Lions needed that for their offense because I hadn't seen it the first 3 weeks. So, what y'all think about the Lions jerseys? I thought they were dope. I ain't even gonna hold you. I love the helmet. The black unis. I just thought it was well done all together. I was really anticipating the jerseys. They had, obviously, we're gonna get the Vikings winter, soldier uniforms at some point this year. There are a couple of teams that are gonna bust out some crispy unis that we haven't seen yet. This was one of them, and I was impressed. They were nice, and this is the type of stage that you want to see this in, right? Like bright lights, big stage, Monday night, only game. Well, it was not the only game in town, but it's a Monday night game. Everybody's watching. Who was watching Titans and Dolphins, right? You had to be a sick individual or Titans or Dolphins fan to be watching that game. I'm a sick individual, so I was watching both games. But those uniforms were dope. They were nice. So let's go ahead and go inside the odds, and then we'll get to the comment section a little shortly thereafter.
Inside the odds.
Looking for a new book this football season? BetUS has you covered. Fastest payouts in the industry. Get up to 10% back on your net losses twice a year. And here's the big kicker. Was 125, now it's 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. And then on the next 2 deposits thereafter, 125% sign-up bonus when you use the promo code YouTube150. So these were the odds for the game going in. Detroit was a 4-point favorite in this game. They covered the spread, obviously. I thought Detroit was going to win this game. I was very fascinated with the over-under total for the game because I talked about this already. These games have been absolute shootouts the last 2 times. So the number 47 didn't sit well with me. Now, here's what I will say. And it would have been easy to get bamboozled here. And I think I kind of fell into the trap of not thinking about some of the past meetings. But neither team had been scoring all that much Like we just watched the Dolphins tonight. We saw how bad they are. And Seattle only put up 24 last week. They should have scored 38 or 40 on the Dolphins last week. We saw the statistic. The Dolphins were one of like 12 or one of 10 on third downs for negative. I've never seen anything like this before. They were one of 10 on third downs for negative 16 yards last week against Seattle. The Dolphins were. Like, what? I get it. You got sacked on a play or two, but 10 times on third down, you couldn't find a way to get in the positive on third downs. You had 10 of them and you couldn't get in the positive. Even if you weren't like, even if you find yourself in 3rd and 18 and you check it down underneath and you get 9, like if you do that 3 times, you can't get in the positives. You lost that much yards on third down that you couldn't find a way into the positives. That's crazy to me. So that was a game where they should have boat raced them and they didn't. So I'm like, you know, Denver's defense is legit. We saw it again against the Jets. And so them not scoring a ton of points in week 1, totally get it. It's week 1 anyway. But they struggled with New England, had to go to overtime to win that game. And so in my mind, I'm like, yeah, they're not going to score a bunch of points. In Detroit, I told you, they hadn't found their groove offensively. It was 26 in week 1, but they needed overtime to do that. It was 16 in week 2. It was 20 in week 3. And so I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is going to be a defensive struggle this time around. Maybe this is going to be 23-20. Maybe this is going to be 24-20, right? Which is what I think Vegas was thinking, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think that's what I was thinking, 24-20. And this shit was just like the previous 2 matchups. When they see each other, it's on go, right? Every time these 2 teams see each other, from the word go, points are going to be scored. And that 47 was smashed pretty much by the 3rd quarter. I mean, it was 28 points scored in the first half. And when Seattle went right down the field and scored to open up the 3rd, it opened up the floodgates and this thing turned into a shootout. So they clearly crushed the over in this game. And let's get to these props here for the game. First scoring play of the game ended up being a Lions touchdown, which was the most likely and probable outcome. So there wasn't a lot of money to be made there. If the Seahawks could have scored, then maybe something could have shook there. Total touchdowns. This was interesting. Over 5.5. We thought this would be a game that could, see some points being scored. And so that was even money. They're telling you, nah, we expect points to be scored and points to be scored via touchdowns in this game. Total field goals scored, 3.5 was the number. And I'm trying to think, there weren't many field goals kicked in this game. I think the Lions scored 6 touchdowns. Let's see. Montgomery had 1. I think Goff threw 2. I think Montgomery had 1. Goff caught 1. That's right. That's where the other one. I was like, damn, am I tripping? Montgomery had 1. Gibbs had 2. Goff threw 1. Goff threw 2, I believe. And then he caught 1. So they didn't kick any field goals. And the Seahawks kicked 1 field goal, but that was before half and they missed. The 62-yarder or whatever it was. So, yeah, that's the under on that one. That was interesting. I thought we would have had more field goals. Shortest touchdown, we had a 1-yarder, I believe, early in the game with Montgomery. I'm pretty sure that one of the 3 Kenneth Walker touchdowns might have been a 1-yarder too. So we had a couple of short ones there. And there were no field goals kicked in the game. So that didn't hit either there. So I got an interesting number that I want to talk about. We'll do that later on in the show, though. I told a story. So I was getting to the comment section after that. I want to talk about the Ravens Bills real quick, and then we'll get to the comment section. So I said and I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, we're going to find out a lot about Buffalo over this next month. I said, you got Jacksonville, you should handle them, and they beat the brakes off of them, 47-10. And I said, after that, we're going to find out if this 3-0 start is phantom, or are you legitimately better off without a legit number one wide receiver. I've been on the side of the argument that says they don't have enough around Josh Allen, right? Now, Josh Allen is one of those ones in the league where he doesn't need as much as other quarterbacks to be successful, hence the 3-0 start, right? But when you play those types of teams, it's going to require more of you if you don't have that one guy, and now teams can play you a little bit differently. Like Marlon Humphrey was all over Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir should never be guarded by a guy like Marlon Humphrey because he's not good enough. He can't get open against Marlon Humphrey, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Marlon Humphrey should be on Stephon Diggs, and that allows Khalil Shakir to eat up the second corner, right? And get open on him and make plays. He's not a number one receiver. So when you draw the number one corner and he's like that, that guy's going to get blanketed. And now where do you go with the football? And, you know, the hope was, okay, well, they got the tight ends. You can throw it to the back out of the backfield. So that's one side of the equation. The other side was, hey, you ain't played nobody offensively either, right? Your defenses looked really good. Von Miller getting all these sacks, and, you know, your defense is playing. Remember, this was a mass exodus defensively, really, the entire team, right? Mitch Morse is no longer your center. Both of the veteran safeties are gone. And so Tre'Davious White is out of there now. And so there was a lot of changes with this football team from, you know, last year. And the defense seemed to be playing really well, right? And then the Ravens showed up. And on the first carry of the game, Derrick Henry goes for 87 yards. And I go, oh, shit. This is going to be one of these nights. And clearly they had no answer for him because he ran for 199 yards and over 200 yards of total offense for him, including a receiving touchdown in this game. Lamar didn't have to do much, 13 of 18. He only threw it 18 times, didn't throw for over 200 yards because he didn't have to because they were running the football so effectively. And they kind of clamped down on the Bills' offense because, again, they don't have enough, right? They don't have enough to me. And I knew it would show up in games like this. These are the types of games where it's going to show up. And I expect the Bills to bounce back. And like I might be wrong about my Jets prediction. I'm going to stick to it, obviously, because I predicted it before the season started. But I thought the Jets were ready to be a threat in not only that division, but the AFC overall. And they don't have it. And I told you, I didn't love their defense, but the defense came to play on Sunday. It's the offense with Rodgers. They're just out of sorts. They're out of sync. They're not on the same page. And we never really talked about this. And maybe I should just say it for the podcast, but I keep forgetting to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about it now because I'm going to forget again if I don't talk about it now. No, I you know what? I'm not going to forget because I have to talk about the game and I won't forget. But I'll just say this. I'm going to throw this out there. There's something off with Rodgers and Salah in that relationship. Clearly, they're not on the same page. And that was some weird energy. But we'll talk about it tomorrow on the podcast when we go Slate's game. But the Bills, I think, are still the class of that division. Because when you look around, the Dolphins ain't shit. The Patriots ain't shit. And now the Jets don't look like they're shit, you know. And so it puts the Bills in a position where, look, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be even great to win that division. I thought it might take 12 wins with the Jets, you know, really applying pressure. You know, you can't beat the Broncos at home and you only can score 9 points. I don't give a shit. It's raining outside and it's nasty. You got to find a way to beat. Bo Nix at one point had like negative 16 yards passing. Like, what am I watching here, right? I thought it was like a typo or something. Like, we're in the second quarter and Bo Nix has negative like 16 yards passing. It's probably like -6 or -7 yards passing. Like, are you serious? And you're only up 6-0? That's the type of time the Jets are on right now. So the Bills are going to win that division if Josh Allen stays healthy. And he took a wallop last night and left the game and was doing all this shit with his neck and this, that, and the third. But if he's healthy, they're going to be fine. But I don't know if they have enough. But what's crazy with the injury to Rashee Rice, shit got really interesting in the AFC all of a sudden because the Chiefs can't sustain. Like, they went from, oh my God, Rashee Rice in year 2 is going to be crazy. They got Hollywood Brown. They added Worthy. Kelsey's still there. They added Jared Wiley in the draft at tight end. Then they went and got an old friend in Juju Smith-Schuster. They're loaded, bro. And then Hollywood Brown out for the season, which prompted them to go get Juju Smith-Schuster. So I was like, they're still fine because they still got speed and Worthy. They still got Moore, right? Sky Moore. And so they still got some guys that can run. Then you add in the consistency of Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashee Rice, and Kelsey. They'll be just fine on offense. Then you lose the running back, Isaiah Pacheco, for who knows how long. Now Rashee Rice is done for the season. Boy, their chances of hitting this thing for the third time have taken a massive hit. So now I'm looking around and saying, who want to step up? And I ain't seen nobody step up in the AFC yet and say, all right, I'll step up. This was Buffalo's chance. On the road, big stage, Baltimore, and they got crushed. Defensively, they were overmatched and overwhelmed. Offensively, they didn't have any juice. They couldn't sustain offense. The Ravens looked 10 times faster than them from a defensive standpoint, while the Bills were on offense. They couldn't get free. Allen was trying to put the cape on, but he couldn't do it. It looked rough. He had that big throw where I went, that's that MVP shit right there. But outside of that, where he was running out of bounds and he flung it across his body and hit the receiver. But outside of that, he really didn't have an impact on the game. And they lose 35-10. And like I said, we're going to find out because now they got the Texans. Then they got the Jets. And I think they got one more team after that. And then it eases up on them, right? Schedule-wise, it eases up a little bit. But we're going to find out how good they are. That one, that was a slice of humble pie for them. And I told you, I sensed desperation on the part of the Ravens. And we got a desperate Ravens team in that game. And you saw it. And I wasn't surprised. I knew there would be a level of desperation there. They knew they had to win that game. They knew they had to win that game. And they did. All right. So let's get to the comment section and see what you guys are talking about. Abel Ambrosio, my guy, Double A. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, you know what to do. Show Abel some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad. Abel Ambrosio. Smack City, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Smack City writes 13-3 this week on winners and losers. Feels good. Feels good. You know what? It was a pretty easy week. You probably won't be alone at 13-3. You'll probably have company. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody went 14-2. This was a pretty easy week. It really truly was. If you didn't color outside the lines too, badly, I could have easily been 13-3. I went 11-5, and I instantly regretted the 2 picks. One of them, I pretty much told y'all, but I wasn't going to change my pick. I got to stand on business. But I pretty much told y'all if Smitty didn't play and AJ Brown didn't play, I didn't care if Lane Johnson played. If those two didn't play at receiver, they had no shot at beating Tampa. And they went from both Lane Johnson and AJ Brown practicing on Friday to just not playing in the game. And I wouldn't have picked Philadelphia if I would have known that, obviously, but it is what it is. And then I said, I don't know why I'm picking Green Bay. Minnesota has done everything I've asked of them. I have no reason not to pick them. And honestly speaking, it's the second time, and I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired with Green Bay, right? Because this is the shit they did to me last year. And then As soon as I do the hard line stance, okay, I'm not picking them no more. That's when they start winning. I have a love and hate relationship with Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. They do this shit to me every single year. They did to me last year, and I'm not effing with Green Bay no more. They guard, and then they got hot, and I wouldn't pick them, and they kept winning. And I picked them in week 1 against Philadelphia, and they had every chance to win that game. Philadelphia turned it over and turned it over and turned it over, and they didn't want to win the game. And I stuck with them, though, right? I stuck with them. Picked them against Indy. They got it done, right? Picked them against Tennessee. They got it done. So I stuck with them. And I said, all right, Jordan Love's coming back. Perfect time for Minnesota to drop their first game. No Jair Alexander. Didn't know that was coming, right? So nobody covered Justin Jefferson. Not that Jair was going to be able to cover him anyway, but he would have had a much better shot than the rest of those dudes out there. So, of course, they got cooked. And even with all this bullshit happening, their weak-ass kicker, Narverson, missed 2 kicks. That would have changed everything in the goddamn football game. So they were chasing points the entire time because he kept missing kicks. And then they went for it on a 4th down that they would have settled for a field goal on if his ass hadn't missed the first 2 kicks. But then now their coach is like, man, I ain't sending his ass out there. And so they turned down the opportunity to get more points and ended up not getting on the 4th down. So he tricked the damn game up. And even with all this shit, they had 19 drop passes, all of that bullshit. Even with all that, they still had a chance to win the goddamn game. And they couldn't do it. And I said, you know what? Green Bay. But such is life, right? All the other losses, I take them in stride. Those were the 2 that pissed me off. How Pittsburgh managed to lose to Indy with no Anthony Richardson, I don't know. With Justin Fields having his best game as a pro, how does this happen? Pooping for Noopin. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy P for Noopin writes, I recently learned that Vinny Testaverde was colorblind and was maybe the cause of a lot of interceptions. Maybe Will Levis is blind. I don't know. Maybe mayo in his coffee is clouding his judgment. You know, I can't speak to what is the issue with Will Levis, but I can tell you this much. Whatever it is, it's going to land his ass on the bench pretty soon because these turnovers, they get more mind-boggling as the weeks pass. Like the first one, you could tell he was trying to get it out of bounds, and as he was being drugged down, he couldn't get enough on it. And, you know, that's a teachable moment. Like, bro, know the situation. If you know you can't throw it away, just eat it. Take the sack. Like the sack and us punting is less of a hindrance to our chances of winning this game than you throwing a pick 6. Like you are throwing a monkey wrench and everything. But that's young guys are gonna do stupid shit sometimes, right? So you take that one and you say it's a teachable moment. Don't do the shit again. Then the next week he does something just as idiotic. He's getting sacked again, trying to do something, and he throws the ball backwards, and it's a fumble, and it gets recovered by the Jets. And you're like, bro, didn't we have this conversation yesterday? And that prompted his coach to go ape shit on him and tell the media he's a grown man. He knows better. Okay? He knows better. And then tonight, I guess shit happens, but dude was standing right in front of DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, how could you have not seen him? Maybe he is colorblind or something. I don't know. That's wild. Abel Ambrosio. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Been a member for 23 months, writes 3-1, first place. Feels damn good. Cliff is a bad mother effer. Yes, he is. And, you know, there's a real discussion about Cliff coming up. And there's going to be some interesting conversations about his future because he's doing such a great job. He could expedite this process. But that's another discussion for another day. Let's get to the comment section and we'll get out of here. I got Munson, right? We still doing it big off that beatdown of the Cards, but a double O might be needed here. McMahon is cleared of any misdoings by the NFL. No pervert. I don't buy that he didn't do anything wrong. I just think they don't have enough evidence. And because he's a kicker and he's not on the NFL roster, they're not going to pursue it any further. They just put that out there. So if anybody's looking for a kicker, hey, knock yourself out. We're not going to do nothing about it. But trust me, if he was a bigger name in the league, they probably would have pushed it a little bit further. And at the end of the day, it's on a flight. It's he said, she said. If there are no corroborating witnesses, the fact that, like, again, this is the thing. Like, I don't think they just made that shit up. Like, we're going to pick on this kicker. Like, we're just going to pick a random dude on a flight to London and try to end his NFL career. I don't think they did that shit. He was probably doing some shit he shouldn't have been doing on that flight. And because it's her word against his word, and there wasn't enough evidence, he gets away with it. But I'm not apologizing to him. He did some shit. He did something. The question is what and how bad was it? But at the end of the day, I bet you he ended up having to pay some money. If you ain't do nothing wrong, then you shouldn't have to pay anything, right? No civil suit, none of that shit. I bet you he ended up paying some money in this situation. I got Munson rights. Glad we got Mr. Perfect though. Like I'm not calling him Mr. Perfect, but I'm glad we got Austin Seibert as well. Obviously, we couldn't have had those questions around our organization, and that too. I mean, it's much bigger than, you know, him in particular. Is we couldn't have anything to do with sexual assault or sexual misconduct or any like that. Couldn't be around our organization, not for what we're trying to do in the direction we're trying to go in. We just couldn't have it, right? Samuel Serrano Brito writes, he who shall not be named was cooking tonight. Hey, look, man, I had some pretty disparaging things to say about old Jared Goff. Old Jared. And I said, is he reverting back to his old ways? And Jared said, shut your ass up. I said, all right, you got me, bro. I ain't look, I apologize. You know, mistakes were made. And it took him to get on this stage to shut my ass up. And respect, Jared, respect. I don't look. I'm not looking for the smoke, bro. I'm just calling it the way I see it. He's like, I respect that, but I just had to shut your ass up, and he did that, and I got no issues with it. Abel Ambrosio, my God, double A. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Rip Matumbo, thoughts on Towns' trade to the Knicks? I'm gonna talk about that on the podcast tomorrow. It's a weird trade. I still don't know how to feel about that trade because Jalen Brunson is so ball dominant, and while Towns fits in the new NBA of, you know, stretch bigs and wanting to play, you know, 5-out offense and spacing the floor, and he allows you to do that, he doesn't protect the rim. And I don't think they re-signed Isaiah Hartenstein. I don't know where he went. I don't think he's back in New York. Who's protect? Mitchell Robinson is out for the foreseeable future. Who's protecting the rim? Because it ain't called Anthony Towns. That's why they used to play him with Rudy Gobert, because he ain't protecting the damn rim. And I'll say this, I like him for that team more than Julius Randle. But then you just lost a shooter in Dante DiVincenzo. Granted, you went out and got one of the best two-way players, right? Guys in the league, but you just lost shooting too. I mean, you added one of the best big man shooters, but it was a trade-off, right? It was a trade-off. I like him for them more than Julius Randle, but I got to see the fit. You know what I mean? I got to see the fit. It feels like on paper, they got better, but how much better? Was it enough where I feel like they can challenge the Celtics? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. And definitely rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo. That shit hurt my heart. Pete Rose, going today too, man. I always wanted him to get in the Hall of Fame. I thought that was bullshit. And so, yeah. Well, September was so shitty for deaths, man. And it didn't go quietly. September was like, you thought it was over? I got 1 day left. I'm finna wreak havoc. Man, September was shitty, man. We lost too many good ones in September. I'm so glad that month is over, to be honest with you, because it was rough. It was rough for no reason. Niners fan says, Lou, this season was about seeing if Brock is worth the $260 million we are about to pay him, and he looks better than last year. I'm impressed. Can't wait for Thursday night against Seattle. He has looked really good. The surprising part is it hasn't led to more points. Like, he was really good against Minnesota. It didn't lead to points, though, right? He was really good yesterday, and it felt like it should have led to more points. That game was a lot closer than it should have been midway through the third quarter. I'm like, why am I watching a 2-score game right now? After they scored a touchdown, like, why is this, like, please? And then they went right down the field and put them out of their misery. But I was like, why is this game close, right? Like, he played well against the Rams. You had no business losing that game. None, right? I agree with you. He's played really well. For some reason, it just hasn't been enough. And I can't quite put my finger on it. John Wynn says, I just turned the TV off being frustrated. What, you thought y'all was going to win every game this season? You thought you was going 17-0? You knew this was a tough assignment. Going into Detroit, into the Lions den, coming out with a dub. Granted, you've done it 6 times in a row in terms of beating Detroit, and 2 times in a row in Detroit the last 2 seasons. But you knew this was a tough assignment. This is a tough ask. You guys showed well. You should be happy about that. Let's see. JK Man 99 writes, what happened with the Dolphins? They still have good receivers. They don't have a trigger man. And if you don't got somebody pulling it, like, you got to have somebody like, for me, this is a great example of, if you are a true Super Bowl contender, you view yourself in that light, which the Dolphins do. They're not winning shit, but if you view yourself in that light, you better have a damn good quality backup quarterback. I've always said that. If you ain't shit and you ain't gonna be shit, like you the Denver Broncos, and you ain't winning shit this year, you can have whoever you want at backup quarterback. And I'm pretty sure they feel good about Jarrett Stidham, right? He was almost starting for them. But I mean, if you're the Titans, Mason Rudolph, cool, right? I mean, I don't think he's shitty, but you're not going anywhere with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. But like, if you're gonna be in a serious Super Bowl conversation, you better have a guy that you trust should your quarterback go down. And I don't know what they did to Mike White. I thought Mike White was a quality NFL backup, but after he left the Jets, it's like this dude is just turned into minced meat or something. And they kept rolling with this Skylar Thompson. I'm like, he stinks. Skylar Thompson stinks. He stunk at K-State. He stinks now. And they got nothing. And I'm like, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. You call yourself a team competing for the AFC East, and this is the best you had at backup quarterback? But I think it's preference based. This is on Mike McDaniel, though. He was not prepared for Tua. And this is the thing. He acted as if Tua never had a concussion. There was never a history of him having concussions. They were ill prepared for this. And this shit is nasty. Like, he looks in over his head. Mike McDaniel does right now. In over his head. NES Tecmo writes, love Noah Brown's block, JD5 hip whip to power pass to Luke. So grateful to watch Jaden after watching QB's Miami versus Tennessee. It's not just watching the state of quarterback play around the league. And in some of these situations where you're like, man, that's rough. Because we've been there. You don't need, it's just, there's an appreciation for watching a dude when you see it and you know it. And you like, yo, he's really good. And that's Jaden Daniels. He's really good. And you see it and you know what you're watching and you're like, bro, this is different. This is different. Hassan Moore says, the two best offensive coordinators in the league scored 42 points this week. Ben Johnson and Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, Ben Johnson is really good at his job. I don't know. I don't think he's an alpha. I lost a lot of respect for him in terms of being a leader of men. And, you know, sometimes some guys are not built to be head coaches. They're not built to be in charge of 53 men. Some guys are great in the roles that they're already in. Like Steve Spagnuolo, probably not a head coach, man. And that's okay. He's one hell of a defensive coordinator, right? Norv Turner wasn't a head coach. One of the best offensive play callers in NFL history. You know, some people aren't built to be in charge. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think he's built to be in charge. And if he is, it's at a college level. It's not at an NFL level, right? I wonder if Cliff will, like, because he's getting paid by Arizona, so the money isn't an issue. I think he's going to just enjoy this. But once that money runs out, making $3-4 million a year ain't going to cut it. When you can go somewhere based off of what you've done and your track record and make $11-12 million at some SEC school or some, you know, Big Ten school, some Power 5 school. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Ben Johnson eventually, he's looking for a ready-made job. And whether that's Dallas or, you know, the Bears, maybe he wants, but I don't even think he wants to deal with a young quarterback like Caleb Williams. I think he's looking for a veteran like a Dak Prescott. So who knows where he'll end up. But he's damn good at his job. Ain't no mistaking that. Ain't no mistaking that. Spence Collins, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, any thought we trade Mariota to the Miami for a fifth? If I'm the Dolphins, what is Marcus Mariota going to do for me at this point? If they would have been better off getting Marcus Mariota before the season, you know, started, or and look, they were comfortable with their quarterback situation. But I watched it in the preseason. I'm like, this shit is trash. Their quarterbacks are awful. You know, if anything happens to Tua, they're in trouble. And they would have been better off signing Marcus Mariota in free agency, giving him, you know, $8, $9, $10 million, whatever, on a one-year deal to give them a competent NFL backup quarterback. Mariota could have ran that offense, used his legs, gotten the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and given them a shot. And that's the kind of backup you need. Jacoby Brissett would have been perfect for them. He would have distributed the ball, and he's the distributor. He would have gotten it to them boys and let them run, right? And make plays and do that kind of shit. But, you know, Joe Flacco would have been a perfect, you know, guy. Like, these are the types of backups. If you serious, like Joe Flacco is being wasted in Indy. Because if I'm serious about winning the Super Bowl, Joe Flacco is the equivalent of Nicholas Foles. He could get hot on a good team and take you and win you a Super Bowl if need be. Like, if you serious about winning the Super Bowl, first phone call after Joe Flacco was no longer in Cleveland after the season, I'm going to go get Joe Flacco. I'm going to go get, if that's the kind of offense I'm running, where I got a pocket quarterback, I'm going to get Joe Flacco, man. If you serious. Clearly, they weren't serious. Will Diggs writes, Terrion Arnold is buns. I was never a big Terrion Arnold fan. And once again, never, ever trust a man with two first names. So there you have it. Right now, he said Detroit picked him over Quinyon Mitchell. Was Mitchell still available at that time? I could have sworn Quinyon Mitchell was the first corner taken in the draft. And Detroit didn't take Arnold until either the late first or the early second. I'm almost 100% positive Quinyon Mitchell went before Terrion Arnold. If you're right about that, what a mistake that was. But who are we to talk about teams passing on corners and making a mistake? We're the poster child for that. Let's see. John Wynn says that Lions Seahawks game was way too ugly for me to watch, and we just lost Byron Murphy among other players. He got hurt in that game? I hope not. That's crazy. I hope he didn't get hurt. Cesar Mayo writes, did we sustain any injuries besides Tyler Owens and Allegretti? Besides Eck and Farrell, feels like we've been healthy. Nope, that was it. I mean, obviously, you had the injury to the linebacker, Jordan McGee. When we put him on IR, Mariota got hurt. We put him on IR. So we had some injuries here and there. But, yeah, you know, knock on wood, we've been relatively healthy to start this season off for sure. We had a pretty healthy camp and all of that good stuff. I don't even want to talk about it no more. Yeah, those were the only two guys that got hurt in the game. And Tyler Owens came back in the game, by the way. Allegretti was the only one to not finish the game. So I see y'all talking about females be lying. And I'm not saying that they don't, but that was random as hell. That's all I'm saying. Like, out of all the people on this, I'm gonna just pick the kicker. And I'm gonna try to get something up off him. It just felt random, right? And unnecessary. Like, there's so many different ways you could try to go about, you know, getting some money in a civil suit and you know, putting yourself in a position to get a come up, right? That didn't seem like that. It just didn't seem like that. And I'm not saying, and I don't like to play that game that, you know, females be lying, this, that, and the third, because yeah, they do be lying sometimes, but I don't like to play that game and you know, be the decision maker there as to whether they lying or not, right? I don't have all the facts, all of that stuff, you know. I don't like to do the victim blaming thing, but yeah, we know it's not always true, right? A lot of times though, in them situations that y'all talking about, it's usually in a relationship where, you know, they're an ex or you ready to move on or whatever. And so I don't want you to go and be with somebody else. So now I'm a lie on you, right? That sort of thing. Like, that's not what this was. But, you know, anyway, he ain't our problem no more, so I don't give a shit. Sean McKenzie writes, you mean we scored 40 plus in a game and blew a team out? I've been telling everyone, don't worry about our weapons. They're fine, especially with a great offensive mind. Yeah, that happened, Sean. Yeah, that's what happened. We scored 42 points and won by 4 touchdowns. which is not something that we do very often. We're not accustomed to that in Washington. Niners fan writes, I know you love elite cornerback play, and I know you love seeing PS2 erase Garrett Wilson on Sunday. Him and Wilson and Rodgers are not on the same page, though, too. But man, it makes a big difference when you got one of them ones, right? One of those dudes that can just say, hey, nah, not today. I was hoping that because Sean Payton ain't pressed not one right button since he got to Denver. And I was hoping he was going to press the PS2 button. Like, hey, you want to move him? I'm definitely interested. What you want? And he was like, nah, we gonna hold on to this one. You know, you want Jerry Jeudy, you can have him. Like, nah, I don't want his ass. I want the corner. And he's like, nah, we ain't doing that one. You want Cortland Sutton? I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm good. You want Tim Patrick? What I got to give you for him? Nah, I ain't doing that. I know you finna cut him. Nah, I'll wait. He was the one I wanted, and they were smart enough to sign that man up. He's really good. But Rodgers trying to throw back shoulder. You know how Rodgers likes to get into that back shoulder fade with his favorite receiver once he builds a rapport. And, you know, Garrett Wilson running all the way down the field, Rodgers throwing the back shoulder, and they just not in sync, bro. But you know what that game was a microcosm for me of? And I sort of I had that really sheepish sort of I told your ass smile. Is Nathaniel Hackett is trash. He's garbage can juice. And Rodgers was trying to save this man, and he's awful. They were blitzing the draws off the Jets, and it reminded me so much of Eric Bieniemy. There were no answers anywhere for Rodgers. It was hard to watch. It really, truly was. But I don't feel bad. That's your boy. You want to protect him, so you got to deal with it. All right, let's go inside the odds once more, and then we'll
inside the odds.
Looking for a new book this football season? BetUS has you covered. Fastest payouts in the industry. Get up to 10% back on your net losses twice a year. And here's the big kicker: 150% sign-up bonus on up to $2,000 on your first deposit, and then the 2 subsequent deposits thereafter, 125% sign-up bonus when you head over to the site betus.com and use the promo code YouTube150. So this was the one that got my antennas kind of up, was the points total in this game, because I knew there were going to be points scored. How much? Because of the relationship that these two teams have had in the past, maybe we get fireworks. Because of what they had done this season, not scoring a lot of points on either side, wasn't quite sure, but I knew there was potential for it. And what did we ultimately get? 42-29. So 71 points total between the two teams. Let's see where that falls. And you know what? Vegas, BetUS kind of saw it, because I was thinking this game could end up somewhere in that 41 to 50 point range. That's plus 200, and that was the most likely outcome. That's where I thought it would be if the two teams continued on the trajectory that they had been on through the first 3 weeks. But they when these two teams see each other, throw all of that shit out the window, they finna score some points. And so we got to 71 points plus 1,200. Plus 1,200 for the 71 points scored tonight. If you'd have put down $10, you'd have won 120. If you'd have put down 100, you'd have won $1,200. Pretty interesting to me right there. And then last but not least, winning margin in this game. You felt like it would be close. These two teams have played close games. They went to overtime last year. I think the year before that, it was like 51-45 or something like that. So you expect this to be a 1-score game. It ended up being a 2-score game. The Lions won by 13. So as you look at all of these different win margins and the money line for it, Lions winning by 2 scores, which they ended up winning by 13. So plus 600, not bad. Not bad for, the win total. Vegas felt like the most likely scenario and outcome of this game was the Lions winning by less than a touchdown, 1 to 6 points. And that could have happened if Geno Smith doesn't throw that interception at the very end and they get in. And that's why I don't know. No, that wasn't that game. It was the first game with the Titans when he was talking about there's a lot of people very interested in how this game ends. Had Geno Smith thrown that touchdown, it would have saved Vegas a lot of money. But I'm pretty sure that plus 600. That's an interesting bet because I don't know if a lot of people felt like Detroit was going to win this game by 2 scores, a legit 2 scores at that. So that was another one that piqued my interest. But in any event, we're going to get out of here on that note. Doubleheader, final doubleheader, I think, for a while. But now we about to start the international series, if I'm not mistaken. Jets and Vikings are over in London starting this weekend. So you're going to start to get a succession of games overseas. So that starts this week. But we knew the first game was going to be trash, and it lived up to the expectations. Titans took care of business, 31-12. The score is very misleading because this was not a 30-point outburst by the Tennessee Titans. This score was 22-12, and they got a safety and a garbage time touchdown due to a Dolphins mishap late in the game. So it made it look like they went out and took care of business. But they did what they needed to do. Tony Pollard had a solid night, almost 90 yards rushing. Tajay Spears did some good things at times. Very conservative play calling by Callahan, but what did you expect when your quarterback is Will Levis? He throws a pick on the opening possession, he gets hurt, and you got to put Mason Rudolph in, and you're just like, hey, the Dolphins stink. Let's just not turn it over, and we can probably win this game. And that they did. Shout out to their defense, man. I told you I've liked their defense this year, and they got it done in this game. Meanwhile, the nightcap Lions hosting the Seahawks. Seahawks came in undefeated at 3-0, undefeated no more. They fall to the Detroit Lions 42-29. Jared Goff perfect on the night, 18 of 18 for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jared Goff. He could not miss tonight, as evident by the stat line. They ran it well. He threw it well. They got timely stops in this game. A big, offensive pass interference penalty on the Seahawks on a 4th down that they had converted on a Tyler Lockett pick. So, Seahawks just made one too many mistakes in this game. I thought they got hosed on the 2-point conversion. I thought that was a good catch. Not that that would have necessarily changed anything in the grand scheme of things, but at that time, that was a big miss on the 2-point conversion because of what it would have done to the score at that time. But the Lions ultimately went down the field and scored again. So it would have kind of made that null and void. But anyway, big win for the Detroit Lions. Their offense looked more like the offense that we had come accustomed to seeing. And that's a good sign if you're a Lions fan with the way that they played tonight. So, and if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, no reason to hang your head. That's one of the best, if not the best team in the conference. And you went into their building, started out slow, but you fought, you showed resilience, and your 3-0 was not a faux 3-0. You're a competent team, but you got some work to do, right? So anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here real quick. Big shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this stream. Once again, head over to betus.com and use the promo code YouTube150. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Monday Night Football overtime, doubleheader style, and also sprinkled in a little bit of Sunday Night Football talk too. Hadn't done that, so I wanted to get to that. But you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. We got playoff baseball tomorrow. Got a number of different things to talk about on the podcast, from basketball trades to all kinds of stuff, and we'll go slate skating around the NFL, all of that good jazz. So I'll see you for that tomorrow. But until then, take care, God bless, and good night.